Good. Thank you. Welcome. Pam, are you ready? Chris, Amy, legal in the house. All right. Council members, let's go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting of our regularly scheduled Johnson County Council meeting as of August 9th, 2021. Roll call, please. Here. 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 Thank you. Jim did say he may arrive a bit late due to traffic, so we will, when he does arrive, we'll make note of that in the minutes. Pete, could I implore you for an invocation, please? Thank you.
We'll take a moment to pray. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this opportunity to meet as council. We pray for thy presence and thy guidance to listen, be attentive to the requests of and information provided by the elected officials and department heads. We pray that for a speedy end to the pandemic. We pray that everyone here tonight travels home safely. We pray for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pete. If you will, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All right, thank you. Next up is the approval of tonight's agenda, August 9th, 2021. I'm not aware of any changes or modification amendments. So with that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Ron, a second from Jonathan E. Myers to approve tonight's agenda. Any discussion or comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. This point of the agenda, we open it up for public comments. That if you are inclined to make a public comment, just step to the podium, introduce yourself, and state your name and address. Chris, anybody online? No. Okay. With that, I will close the public comments section of tonight's meeting. Moving on to item D, animal control. This is the public recognition of Ashlyn Smith of Girl Scout Troop 133 for her service project that she completed at Johnson County Animal Shelter, which resulted in her receiving the Girl Scout Gold Star Award. Mr. Delt.
Thank you, County Council. We've been blessed at the shelter to have at least 4 individuals earn their Eagle Scout designation or badges with projects completed at the shelter. My prayer and hope has always been that we would have someone from the female side earn a Gold Star, which is the Girl Scout equivalent of the Eagle Scout badge. And we have. And I'd like to introduce to you and recognize Ashlyn Smith, Girl Scout Troop 133.
Thank you.
Did you all receive the pictures I forwarded of Ashlyn's project?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing those. Hi.
Hello, thank you for recognizing my work, and I just wanted to extend my gratitude to my team. Some of them are here. I have my family, my mom, my brother, and my dad are here, as well as my Girl Scout troop leader, Danielle. And I just wanted to also thank everybody else that was on our team that wasn't able to be here tonight. We had a great group of people that helped lead me in my project, as well as do some of the hard physical labor. We built a tunnel at the animal shelter for dogs to run through and over. And we planted a couple of trees that will provide shade to the dogs in the play yards. And we also added some recycled plastic benches that will be low maintenance for the animal shelter, so that people that are wanting to adopt these dogs will be comfortable and they can be in the run and just have nice places to sit. So I want to say thank you again to my team. And that's it.
Thank you.
Congratulations and congratulations to the parents and family. Good job.
One more thing, my team and I put together one last thing to give to the animal shelter, and these are little kits with leashes and collars that they can give out to each adopter of the dogs. And on here, we included a little message that just explains some of our project and some of how it can be sustained. And thanks to the adopters for supporting the animal shelter. And on the back, we have some facts about animal shelters and the Girl Scouts themselves.
That's great. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment with her public speaking skills and organizational skills. Most of us will probably be not on the council when she's eligible to run, but we better watch out.
Yeah.
Parents be proud.
Yeah,
It
that's
is.
good parenting. Ashland, about approximately how many hours did you invest into the project?
We're estimating pretty close to 100 hours will be included, and we're working on a write-up now to be able to submit that for final approval here in the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Well, with the look of the tunnel, I'd say our highway department could probably utilize someone that can bring in a project at or below cost. So thank you. All kidding aside, though, great effort by you and the troop. And Michael, thanks for bringing her here to recognize her and her efforts tonight.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Best wishes to you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, item C, routine matters, the consent agenda. Pretty small 3-item consent agenda. But as always, you're welcome, council members, to peel off any item to have separate discussion if you like. Otherwise, would entertain a motion to approve the consent. Agenda. Thank you, Jonathan T. Myers for the first, second by Jonathan E. Myers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you. Next up, item D, salary ordinance amendments, additional appropriations, reductions, and transfers. And the first item is the immune and vaccination child. I believe this, hey, Jim, bear with me. Health Department, thank you. Anybody here or online from the health department? Okay. And while Chris is bringing that person to the screen, just recognize in the minutes the arrival, Mr. Jim Ison. Thank you. As tardy as he is, we appreciate him being here. All right, looks like Chris, you have Betsy Swearingen up there. Betsy, would you go ahead and state your name though for the record?
Hi, Betsy Swearingen, Director of the Johnson County Health Department.
Thank you very much. So you are going to talk to us about a couple items, well, at least one item here, B1 on tonight's agenda. If you want to go ahead and elaborate.
Sure, this is our COVID vaccination site grant that we received on July 1st. It accidentally didn't get advertised last month, so that's why we're here. It's for a grand total of $311,978.58. And so that's broken down into part-time FICA, office supplies, travel and training, contractual, operating equipment, office equipment, and operating supplies. So we're just asking for your approval to appropriate that, please.
Great, thank you. So grant monies to be appropriated for the operating period, July 1, 2021 through 6/30 of 2022.
Yes, sir.
Correct. All right, thank you. Any questions for Betsy?
Is the rental for location separate grant?
We don't, Compass Park is donating their space for us right now. So currently we are not paying any rent or utilities. I don't know that that could change in the future, but as of right now, Compass Park is still letting us stay in their facility.
But if you had to in the future, it would be reimbursable.
Yeah, it would not be reimbursable. But this grant could cover rent and utilities, yes.
Very good. Thank you, Betsy. Any other questions for Betsy concerning this appropriation of grant funds? Would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as presented.
I'll approve it.
Thank you. Have a first from Jonathan E. Myers, a second from Melinda to approve item D1 as presented. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to D2, drug-free Johnson County. Thank you, Betsy. Is there anybody here or online from, oh,
Hi, I'm Michelle McMahon with Drug Free Johnson County.
Jill, welcome. If you would, please just elaborate a little bit on your request to transfer funds today.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I am newer in this position. This is my first official year as coordinator of Drug Free Johnson County. And as part of this, when we were setting our budget, we had added some funds into our administrative category. And now we are asking that you would allow us to reappropriate those now that we know more of what we want to do with those funds. That would include, we're trying to promote the group a little bit more within the community. So we're hoping to host an event and get some printing done to promote the coalition, the task force, and also get some wearing apparel. So we had already asked for the money to be moved into our administrative line item, and now we're just actually sectioning that out a little bit.
Good. So the funds that are deposited into the 1148, are those grant monies or user fees or what?
No, that is part of we get all of our funds from court fees, court fines throughout the year. And then we have to set a budget and appropriate those into 4 different categories. We have our prevention, education, intervention, treatment, and law enforcement. Those are our 3 grant fund categories. And then we have our administrative / kind of ad hoc category. And that's where we can use 25% in administration for either coordination or other services. We actually have less than 25% total in the 1148 category, which I think is wonderful. But we've just wanted to pull it out and define it a little bit more, which is why we're asking for this reappropriation and to set up and establish these new accounts within that administrative category.
Forgive me for not maybe knowing this top of my head, but being your funding is derived from fees paid through the court. Are you kind of, air quotes here, sponsored by one of the judges or one of the courts in this?
No, no, we actually do everything. It's through Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. So it's statewide. Each county has a local coordinating council, which is what Drug Free Johnson County is for Johnson County. And so we have to follow kind of the state mandates, which tells us how to spend our money, as well as the comprehensive community plan that we have to follow. So we've worked with the auditor's office to set up how the accounts should look. Like, as I said, I'm newer in this position. And so it was something that we didn't have it narrowed down as much when I took over on how we wanted to spend the funds in the administrative category. And so that's why we're asking now that we know. I will tell you that what we're asking to do, and why we're asking to do this, is because we do get our funding from judges, but the judges, I don't know that they really know what Drug Free Johnson County does. And so we want to host an event for court staff and judges so that they can actually see some of the programs or different grants that we then put out with the funding that we receive from them. So.
Thank you. And my final question, I think, in your explanation for your wearing apparel, you mentioned, you referenced your board of directors and task force members.
Mhm.
Who are your board of directors and did they take any kind of action on this request? In other words, are they recommending it or they approved it?
Yes, so this has been our board of directors. So we have an executive committee who Sonia Ware McGuire is our chair. She's with Girls Inc. Kindy Culp, who is with Reach for Youth, is the vice chair. And Tammy Hickman is our secretary / treasurer. And so they were part of recommending and approving this so that I could bring this to you all. And then we have a larger board, which includes a lot of different people from the different organizations and agencies in the 3 different categories: the law enforcement, prevention, and intervention treatment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. Any further questions for Michelle? All right, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as presented.
Have a motion from Jonathan E. Myers, a second from Jim. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you, Michelle, for the information. Appreciate that.
Thank you all very much. Have a good day.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, that concludes section D of our agenda. Moving on to E, other business. First up, approval of ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance of the Johnson County Council regarding an additional appropriation by the White River Township Fire Protection District, Special Fire General Fund Personnel Services.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
How are you?
Good, and you?
Good. Good. I'm Jeremy Pell, Chief of the White River Township Fire Department, and with me is Community Liaison Mike Hoffman and our accountant Ben Riker. And in front of you, you have a request for an additional appropriation. And this appropriation was necessary to convert 2 positions to full-time positions due to the staffing challenges that's been created by COVID, as well as the economic differences, I will say, in staffing. It is next to impossible to find part-time employees. I look back through our roster, we've lost 30 employees since COVID started in March. So this is to maintain our daily operational staffing.
So is your plan to hire, is that you want additional appropriation to hire more or?
It's to convert part-time positions to full-time. So the way our department staffing model has worked and our firefighting staffing model has been the same for at least 20 years. And that is to have some full-time positions on the fire engines, fill the other positions with part-time employees, but then additional, we have a pool of part-time employees that backfill the leave time. So this is nearly the perfect storm. We've had more leave time because we've had to put employees on COVID quarantine. We've had employees get ill from COVID. So we rely on those part-time people to fill those positions. We rely on the part-time people to fill their own staff or scheduled positions. And then we rely on the staffing model staying consistent, and it has not stayed consistent this year. It is just, there are many fire departments hiring. If you have to choose between your full-time job and your part-time job and the risk of getting COVID on your part-time job, you're going to choose your full-time job and your family. So this is the same staffing level we've had for 20 years, but it is to convert positions to full-time. And this would do 2 seats out of the 17 firefighter seats we have every day.
Got a procedural question that this is, again, for just not knowing yet, where's it coming from?
It would come from personnel services. It would come from cash reserves right now. We do have the opportunity of some FEMA reimbursements, but they haven't committed to us when that will be received. So as of right now, these are cash reserves.
And to 2022, how would it be funded?
Ben, do you want to speak to that?
Ben Rager, the accountant for the district. Yeah, for 2021, the additional staff will be funded with cash reserves, as Chief said. And for 2022, it's a little different situation. Last year, the legislature passed some legislation for units that had populations that are increasing. They had a special increase to their tax levy, which became available. And we have that option next year to go ahead and have this tax levy to go ahead and fund to pay for these positions for the 2022 budget.
So what you're telling us is that you're going to be coming before us for an extension of services?
No, it's not an extension of services. It's a different type of increase. It's just based on population growth. The state already approved it last year, but we're going to come to you to ask for the additional levy as part of the budget.
Okay. Is that, and this is where it gets a little tricky, but my understanding is we increase your levy, we decrease the schools. Is that correct?
No, not directly. There's been discussion in the past with respect of the tax levy, because what happens is that the taxpayers at the 1%, 2%, 3 caps, there's just a fixed amount of money that is going to be taxed on the property. If the taxpayers at the tax caps, all of that money that gets collected is allocated based on the proportional tax rate. It'd be a relatively little effect. We could do the calculation for you, but there would be some impact. I don't think it'd be that much. Better call.
Let me throw something out. You guys are, everybody, not all guys, everybody, I'm sorry, pretty much as a business person out there. Let me, from a business standpoint, throw a couple of things out there. Everybody knows how difficult it is to find anybody part-time for any job, even a full-time job, okay? Our staffing has not changed. We're supposed to have a total of 23 people. If you look at the north part of the county, we have 3 full-time ambulances. Greenwood has 2.5. Bargersville has 1.5. We're well exceeding this year over a 20% increase in ambulance runs, and it looks like we run like 4,200 times this year. Okay, but the problem is when you look at our staffing and look at our budget, overtime for any business should be for emergency situations. Somebody gets sick, somebody has to go to a funeral, somebody wants to get married, and you should be able to bring somebody in for overtime. But let me give you a couple examples. In 2019, we budgeted for 4,000 hours of overtime. That actually sounds insane, but that's what we have to do. We actually ran 15,681 hours of overtime. 15,000, and only were able to staff 19.1 of the 23 positions that we're supposed to fill on a daily basis. Let's move forward to 2021 with a run increase of over 20%. We're up to 20.6 because we're trying to move these 2 positions. We only budgeted because we thought we could do better, 1,450 hours of overtime, but we're already at 6,320 this year. So we're just throwing money away. I know it sounds like it's a lot more money, but in the scheme of things, in the long run, we're staffing with overtime instead of staffing with staff that should be on duty. Based on this, next year, we should drop the overtime by about 4 times over this year. It's just not the right way to staff a fire department or any business or any police department or anything in government.
Sir, I heard COVID, mentioned several times. Is this a function of COVID?
It is, but it can't be attributed only to COVID. If you look at the staffing model, there are 3 ways to staff fire trucks: full-time employees, part-time employees, or call people back on overtime. And that has been a very delicate balance over the years. The impact that COVID's had on the part-time staffing has made that percentage of the staffing model untenable. So what we're doing is we're trying to keep the same, as Mr. Hoffman says, it's 17 firefighters and 6 paramedics on the ambulances. We're trying to keep that same level of staffing on the street without the advantage of having that part-time people. So this is a more efficient way. Converting those part-time positions to full-time is much more efficient than doing the same thing and not having it succeed or paying overtime, which is.
Well, and I understand the quandary, you need to create the position. But my question is this reimbursable? Is this, I mean, is this a reimbursable cost?
Well, we've taken multiple steps. We've approached the county with a request for CARES Act money and have not received that. We have submitted 2 requests to FEMA, and those funds are obligated, but they have not given us a timeline or sent us any money. So we felt it was prudent to ask for this additional appropriation from cash reserves that the district has saved over the years, planning for situations such as this and Interstate 69, so that we could act earlier in the year rather than coming to you at the last minute.
Could somebody comment about their request for COVID or for CARES Act funding? Have you guys submitted or received anything from them on that? No.
Is that a question for me?
No, I was asking.
That's done.
Are you talking about rescue funds?
Rescue.
Are you talking about rescue funds, Chief? Instead of CARES Act, talking about rescue fund possible funding?
I thought it would be considered CARES Act.
It was a request for the CARES Act.
Okay, so that.
Well, let me pull my notes up. Did you set your stuff on top of your mic?
I do have a question for your, what's your responsibility?
I'm the financial consultant.
Okay, I got a question for a financial consultant while you're looking at that. We received tonight calculation of estimated maximum levy for budget year 2022. And it shows White River Township maximum levy. You said something about the maximum levy next year, or did I miss?
Yeah, we're talking about the next levy for next year. If you were to look at that document in front of you. Assuming this is what you're going to review.
Yeah, this right here.
Yeah.
Right.
And you'll see that.
Right.
It's highlighted. That's the levy increase the state approved last year.
Right. So the funding source for 2022 is within that levy.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And procedurally, the 364 is not being asked of the county general fund. It is within your own reserves for this year. And we'll make one assumption in this part of the discussion. One is that not questioning that you need to do it. Let's assume you need to do it. I'm just talking about how you fund it. That it is funded for this year, so there's no request for anything from anybody.
Correct.
All we're doing is that the process requires you to submit an ordinance to us that we have to approve. That's a process, right?
Technically, you're approving the spending authority, but the cash is within our reserve. It's no
Right.
county money involved.
Right, but you're not asking for something from the general fund,
Not
which,
from the county.
right, which is my general statement.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then your statement for 2022 funding is that it would still be quote unquote, for lack of a better word, self-funded within the fire department?
It would be within the tax levy. would be-
Within the levy,
Yes, yes.
without coming back and saying to the council, we need additional funds from the county general fund. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
All right, so we're not putting anybody out, as I understand. Is that correct? It's all there.
Yes.
Okay.
I would, sorry, I would say with today's request, Ron, to allow them to appropriate through this ordinance or resolution, the use of their general fund to do this. You're right, that latter statement of yours is correct. What's at risk is, if I understood Ben correctly, there's going to be a need to fund 2022 and beyond with an appeal to increase the levy based on census population growth?
Not for this year, no. The state's already approved the levy increase. All that we'll need to do is have the council approve a tax levy for next year.
2022.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be within that maximum levy.
Yes.
So here's. Feel like I'm always the wrench in your gears, chief. But this isn't, I guess I'll preface it by saying your department and you do a fantastic job. This
Thank you.
isn't a question on the quality of service that's provided.
Understood.
The thing that always comes back to me and it makes it such a hard pill to swallow is the size of your budget.
Mhm.
I mean, when we're really looking at it, your department's budget is almost that of Bargersville and Greenwood's combined. And I'm looking into the future and we're going to, essentially by approving this, we're approving a levy increase for next year. And you're going to be coming back, I'm assuming, for an extension of services to hire firefighters to staff the engines at the new school, public safety building.
We're still working with Bargersville on that.
I get that, and this goes back to that previous statement I made. I get that, you know, the assessed values out there allow you to have the budget that you have. But when we're looking at square miles and the amount of people served, it's not even close to Greenwood and Bargersville combined, but your budget almost doubles there. So my question is, why are they able to operate in those parameters and we're constantly increasing a budget that is pretty fat?
To clarify a couple points, I would want to see an apples to apples comparison to Greenwood before I agree with the comment that it's the same, because much of the Greenwood Fire Department's budget is in the city of Greenwood's general fund. So you can't just look at Gateway and say, this is it. I can tell you that Bargersville is having the same staffing dilemma we are, and they staff maybe 10 to 12 people per shift. So there is a proportion there. And my guidance to the council would be to view White River Township in the Center Grove area on its own merits and not compared to the final action by other units. So we're looking at a population of about 48,000, 26 square miles, Indiana 135, I-69, 4,200 runs per year. So the comparison to other county departments, I don't think should be the standard. I think the standard should be, what does it take to protect 48,000 people with the interstate coming through the area? So this problem is not unique to White River. The solution might be, but that solution nets the level of service that's necessary by national standards and by best practices for a community of the size of White River Township. To give you perspective, when I look at the numbers compared to cities, we're in the top 20 biggest cities in the state of Indiana, even though we've got the perception that it's a township. This is a thriving community with a dense population. I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary to maintain the level of service. As I said, our firefighting, the 17 firefighters that are on the street, that's the same as it's been since 2001. So all we're really asking is to sustain that level of service by adjusting to the economy. And the economy is that staffing model is not a viable model.
Why, I'm just curious, why did you have 30, you said 30 people on your roster that left?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are various reasons, but.
The biggest reason is that area fire departments are back to hiring full-time for this very reason, because of COVID and because in suburban Indianapolis, the part-time staffing, to rely on that for your daily staffing is not a viable option. So we've lost the biggest percentage due to part-time firefighters getting the training at White River Township and then taking that training and going to another career department. I would say the second biggest reason would be that with COVID and the risks associated with it and the impact it has on your full-time job, the part-time people just are not staying and working the hours the way they were.
A lot of full-time fire departments are not allowing their full-time career people to work part-time anymore, which was the majority of our part-time staffing. Because if they got sick working a part-time job at White River, then they could fulfill their full-time duty at IFD, as an example.
And don't get me wrong, like I said, you guys have a wonderful department. Chief, I think you do a fantastic job. You're doing what you should be doing right now. And I'm doing what I should be doing
I understand.
as a representative in the seat.
Yeah.
I've got to say, you know, I'm just torn. You know, we have a fundamental disagreement on the apples to apples. I think when you look at the number of people and the area that's being served, it is very comparable with budgets that are not. So that's my question. That's where I keep going back, is how are they doing it? And we're constantly needing to raise the levy.
Well, very succinctly, a fire protection district has to be 100% self-supported, and Franklin and Greenwood don't. They have city legal, they have
Right.
city maintenance, they have city accounting, they have they've got city insurance. I mean, the apples to apples comparison is not in terms of service, it's in the term of budgeting model. And we all know from our experience in local government that they're different units. They budget differently. So what you're saying is a 100% true representation of what it costs for all of fire protection without reliance on county or city resources.
You know, frankly, I mean, I drive all over the county and I can see where White River Township has probably been neglected over the years. And a lot of that tax money has gone to Greenwood and hasn't stayed in White River. So, you know, as a constituent of White River, and James is my district rep, I'd like for you to vote for it.
I do want to go back to answer a question, if I could, please. There was a question about the CARES Act. And in November 10th of 2020, actually, let me go back, November 6th of 2020, I sent a formal request for CARES Act money for about $450,000. On November 10th, I received a response from Emergency Management that said that they are not able to reimburse your request. I submit that that you submit a request through FEMA. We haven't gotten that. And then on March 10th, I also sent another request to the county because our understanding is the Indiana Finance Authority provided all the CARES Act money to the county. So we sent another request to the county asking for reimbursement for that. It's $446,000 in both staffing and equipment that White River used to keep the staffing up, to put the COVID ambulance in service that served the entire county, and to reimburse us for expenses. So we did make those formal requests to the county commissioners, county council, and FEMA.
Well, Jim, I'm going to use my past experience to help clarify part of what he's saying, and you're certainly aware of this too, I'm certain. The apples and apples, it is in fact the case that if you were to compare runs, compare staffing, compare equipment, all those things that firefighting is, that's apples to apples. Where one might not quite see that comparison is what you just said, that sometimes we might lose sight of, is that you have those added costs that are not part of that apple comparison, that are covered by the city of Greenwood, that aren't covered in the township fire departments, the legal, the financial, And there probably are a few more of them that aren't covered insurance. So if we were to do an apple to apple comparison, which might be an excellent exercise, to satisfy that quandary, that I understand and agree that your cost of doing business are not the same as Greenwood's cost of doing business.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is I would argue that it is a considerable difference when you look. They're almost double. So what I'm saying is the amount of the difference is quite a bit more than what I believe would take to run that department. Let me ask you this. What all the overtime, how much of that is being staffed by command level positions?
Almost none. Our commands chiefs are overtime exempt. So our salary is what our salary is, whether we work 60 hours a week or 40 hours a week. We did have one staff member that we pulled off of his full 40-hour-a-week position and put him on the COVID ambulance, and he would have incurred a small amount of overtime.
Yeah.
And just for the record, Melinda, a lot of where this conversation is coming from is from White River residents on the budget of the White River Fire Department. So
Okay, well,
I
I'm a
feel that I
resident.
am being representative of my constituents by asking the chief these tough questions.
No, there's nothing wrong with asking questions, but one cannot drive through White River Township and not see a difference between the development and the money spent in that area versus downtown Greenwood. There's a huge difference. But yet those people pay into they pay into the Greenwood tax base too, but yet the roads have been neglected. I mean, it's been a neglected part of the county.
I'm not here to fight for Greenwood. I'm just on this topic.
Are you guys still doing that study on the merger? Is that,
It's in the hands of the commissioners. I don't know where it stands.
okay, I thought the chiefs were working on,
No, but the last update I got was that they commissioned a separate committee to look at that.
okay, I was not aware of that.
Councilman Ison, I can reconcile some of the differences for you very, very quickly. We've had the discussion about legal, accounting, insurance and maintenance and fuel and that could reside in the general fund. But there are two other very important points. One is that Greenwood gets their ambulance service from a private service, and that's completely off the books. All that revenue and whatever profits go to Seals Ambulance and their administrative staff and their company. We show the expense of our budget, which has to be appropriated, it has to be budgeted, and we bring in about $1.25 million a year in revenue. So probably the more accurate comparison would be to pull that out, do the apples to apples and see what the tax rate is compared to people that receive Greenwood fire services and EMS services. And I think you'll find that tax rate or the actual taxpayer bill is very comparable because we bring in revenue to White River Township and White River Township Fire Department. We go ahead, we turn that right around and spend it on the services. And so that's actually a very efficient way of doing things. We have grown the department using alternative revenue services outside of just coming to you every year asking for fees. The other reconciliation point I would point out is that the CARES Act money went directly to the municipal units. So the city of Greenwood got CARES Act money directly and would have had the option of using that money to fund the fire department during COVID. We're asking for that same opportunity, only we don't have the CARES Act money to do it with. We're doing it with cash balances that the citizens have provided to us over the years. So in another city, such as Greenwood or Franklin, the federal government provided those funds for the additional appropriation. And in our community, our citizens are providing the funds for the additional appropriation.
So you've received, if I hear you right, you've received zero reimbursement from the CARES Act
Correct,
for overtime or anything like that?
correct.
Okay.
We've submitted it all. We're caught up with FEMA, but they have not sent us anything.
Okay, and you, on the apples and apples comparison, you just made an excellent point, and I'm going to ask us, so I'm glad you brought it up. That within the budget of City of Greenwood, ambulance service is not in that budget, correct?
100% correct. It's a private ambulance service.
Jim, as you recall, is not in the budget.
Well, correct, but they're also not making a profit.
No, they're not in the budget. So if you're comparing apples to apples, you have to take out the cost of doing business, in terms of the cost of doing business and providing service. It is a revenue source for you, but it's also an expense. Do you know what the expense is compared to the revenue?
We're right at break even.
All right, so your budget, if you're comparing, I don't know what the numbers are, if it's 4 million and comparing it to 6 million, then $1 million of it is ambulance, and
Yes.
that Greenwood doesn't have in their fire service, correct?
Correct.
Whatever those real numbers are, I don't know.
Oh, I agree.
All right, so that's an apples and apples that would be very easy to look at and say, well, they're, look at it's twice the budget, or it's 40% higher, or whatever. But you got to pull that out. But it's also a revenue source, which the cities don't have access to, aren't using that service. They one time did have their own ambulance service, and then Myers and everybody else did it years ago. But when you go to comparison, and maybe, that's something that needs to be done for the future, but the question is, you're able to fund this with your reserves. Those reserves will diminish, correct?
Correct.
And I think part of the point Jim's making is that you will, and sort of the question that I asked, you will be coming back and asking for the funding, or through your own internal funding, you'll be funding these next year, which will impact your potential maximum levy, correct? So you'll
Yes.
have to come back and ask us at that point in time to raise your maximum levy or not.
Our cash reserves would deplete if we're not allowed to use our full statutory tax levy. And we will be coming back to you in the fall to ask permission to appropriate our full maximum tax levy that would include that population increase. We're in a conundrum because the state applied a one-size-fits-all property tax cap at 1%, 2%, and 3%. So they came back and they provided a mechanism that said communities that are fast growing, AKA a population increase, is allowed to have a higher levy to address that population. So that is part 2 of this. Yes.
And Jim, your quandrum about part 2 is, could you explain what?
Yeah,
part 2 is?
so essentially they are going to be requesting a levy increase for next year for 20. They're going to pay for this year out of their budget. Next year will be a levy increase to the taxpayers. And then we had a project last year. I don't know if we saw it when you were on the council or not, maybe before your time, but they're building a public safety facility at Center Grove.
Yeah,
Schools.
we haven't had that yet, but I saw it.
And they are going to be needing quite a few firefighters to staff that. So we're going to be doing it again through an extension of services.
Well,
And
one,
when we do that, when we raise one, it takes money from others. That's my concern.
Just to be clear, the state has already approved that levy. And on the point to staffing the new station, we have taken all the steps with Bartersville with our co-staffing model, writing a mutual aid, draft mutual aid agreement that both parties are looking at. Bartersville's current plan is to help us staff that, but it nearly becomes a moot point, because if we don't have an additional appropriation and some type of action on our current staffing, then we wouldn't be able to staff a 4th station even with an extension of services levy. I mean, this is to maintain the current 17 firefighters, with the understanding that the other 6, so I'm not confusing anything, the other 6 our firefighter or their EMTs and paramedics on ambulances, and that's user fee supported. They're bringing all the revenue in. Now, I did hear one point, and that was about the profit on the private ambulance service. And I can't speak to that because it's a private ambulance service, and we know private services do create a profit before their final balance sheet. So they have to pay an accountant, an attorney, and executives, and taxes, and all that money goes right back into our service. Additionally, we can't get to the private ambulance services financials. I've never been able to do that comparison between us and SEALS. I can tell you that we put 3 ambulances in service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's break even. And I can tell you that SEALS puts 2 in Franklin and 2.5 in Greenwood. So there's no economy of scale there where, you know, we're doing it more expensive and they're able to do it, or they can't put as many in service as we can. We're a break even service, and they have to show some profit someplace.
I have a question for the financial consultant. So if FEMA comes through with funding, where does that money go?
If FEMA comes through with the funding, you would go back to the district's general fund to reimburse us the expenses that were paid out.
Do you happen to know current full-time staffing level in Greenwood?
I do not.
I do know I saw in the minutes that they just added, I believe, 4 full-time firefighters. I don't know what that number is. You know, Jim, by chance?
They added 9, but 3 were replacements, so they had 6 new positions.
All right, do you know how many total full-time
No,
positions?
I don't know.
Just curious.
I would like to get back to this. I respect and understand the discussion. We're not going to reconcile to apples tonight. We're not, it's not the necessary, in my opinion, that's not the conversation we should be having at this point. Ben, Chief, what is your current balance approximately July 30th today of the general fund? I mean,
Our last board meeting was 5 million, and we just got our tax draw in June.
Okay.
So this is closer to our high point, with our low point being in November, December before our tax draws.
Approximately, what is your operating budget annually? Like 8 million?
That's just a tick over 10 when you
Just
include the
to go
cumulative
10.
fund.
So you've got 50% reserves. You've addressed the point of the reimbursement from FEMA, if received in part or in full, that money's going to go back into the general fund.
Correct.
So right now, your maximum, it may be too early, and that would be a fair answer, but your maximum levy estimated for 2022 is 5.6 million. 5,630,000, according to the sheet I'm looking at here. Or do you anticipate a request for growth in excess of 4.3% for that number from your current budget?
The 5.6 is greater than 4.3% higher in the current year.
Okay.
We're requesting the $5.6 million levies for request. My understanding.
This one said differently, is your full, if you request the full maximum levy, would that be greater than 4.37%?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to drive at. So there is an impact to other units potentially in this. The economics of that have not been realized or calculated, and I would say it's too early to do so. So I would like to drive this back, if I could, to tonight's request to fund out of the general fund. Love the dialogue, not diminishing any of the other conversation, understanding that this is to maintain the staffing level. This is not an add to, not an extension of services. It's to maintain a staffing level using currently cash on hand. And it would appear that they have sufficient cash on hand to even do that into the next year as well, and possibly some years to come. Is your board supportive of this request?
Yes, they are unanimously in support.
Okay.
And I agree with all the statements you made.
Okay.
That's a fair assessment.
That's where I'm at, trying to round this back home, hopefully towards a motion maybe, or not. I'm not.
Well,
I'm ready.
I just want to make a comment that, I mean, I kind of feel like some priorities are off here. I mean, what was it last year? There was a $9 million library approved and put the entire county in debt for a library that sits in Whiteland. But yet we're debating about a life and death service. Come on, guys.
Yeah, not relevant. Appreciate the conversation,
It's
Melinda, but
relevant.
we have, it's, White River Township has their own taxing district. You made a statement earlier about taxes going from White River to Greenwood. It's not the case. They have their own taxing, they have their own levy, they fund their own operations. They have nobody's losing there. So let's be clear that they have their own tax rate and they collect their own levy and we appropriate that. The library has nothing to do with that, Melinda.
Well,
It does not. So let's move
priorities.
on, please, to this matter of what's before us right now.
One quick question. Hey, Chief, will you continue to try to recruit and staff a part-time? Or are you gonna totally give up on that?
We're not going to totally give up. We ran a part-time process last year during COVID in May, and we've lost half of those individuals. So we'll continue to request applications. I can't promise you what the results will be, though. It seems like a revolving door, and the board and I have taken this approach because at
The
face
emphasis on
value, when we
that.
pay part-time less, with the attrition level and the cost it takes to train and equip them, it's not nearly as cost effective as it looks at face value.
Well, I want to clarify one thing that some people have commented to me that it's not accurate. Your part-time people are professional firefighters. They just happen to be paid less than what a full-time firefighter, career firefighter is paid, but they're still professional certified firefighters that are paid what, $15 an hour?
Not even that. They're started at $13.62.
All right, $13.62 an hour to put their life in danger. And like I said, a certain percentage of them are in fact career firefighters elsewhere who are working on a part-time basis. They're not just, they're not just the old guy that like to hang around the fire station and jump on the back of the truck.
And I think that is part of the problem, is that they are required to meet all the same training requirements and physical requirements as a career firefighter, but we're paying them $13.62 an hour and not giving them any benefits whatsoever. So I can provide the analysis and the statistics. The logic dictates that why would you work at White River for $13.62 an hour when you can go to McDonald's for 15, or you can mow yards for 25 or 30 an hour? And that's the heart of the conundrum that we're facing.
Yes, I agree. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, you ready for a motion?
Go down. Yeah, but we don't know. There's no quantifying of that. I'm sorry, Ron.
Is he ready for a motion?
I am ready for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2021-02.
Have a motion from Ron Deere to approve. Is there a second?
I'll approve it.
Have a second from Melinda. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that carries. Thank you very much. Great conversation, everyone, and let's look forward to conversations at budget time.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this, and any of this information you would like, we'll get on it. We can do the studies and provide the information.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, other business, item number 2, County Council. This is our review of the estimated property tax levy limits and estimated reductions due to circuit breakers for each taxing unit. I'll ask Amy to chime in here, but in your packets, you did receive those 2 documents, the 2022 estimated property tax cap impact report for Johnson County, as well as the State of Indiana Department of Local Government Finance calculation of estimated maximum levies for budget year 2022. So our job tonight is to review these and then make a statement as the fiscal body concerning those two documents. Is that accurate? Thank you. And we have carefully crafted language to this effect that we have put in use year after year, and Amy's been so kind to share that with me. So before we get to that, though, are there questions about what's contained within the report, how it's to be used, or why we're going through this?
Yes, I have a question.
Yep, Jonathan.
The plus estimated 2022 mental health adjustment of 967,115. How is that? And who does that go to? I'd like to ask that question.
Yeah, great question that you may not have a full answer on, but I will commit to getting you a complete answer. I believe this has to do back with our outside contract or services, outside contract for outside services with adult and child potentially.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So is there a way how I can condition my approval or the
I'm sorry, I'm
council's
not hearing
approval?
anything, if you don't mind pulling the mic up.
Is there a way that we could condition this approval with further consideration as to how this money is spent and who it goes to?
I think it's
It's commissioners,
right, but it's regulated by the state law.
but we're approving
Right.
the appropriation.
Legal.
Okay.
So the 967, I think is outside the levy. I think that's why it's not different line. So we'll go with that.
Okay.
As far as who the contracted provider is, I know what you're getting at, and
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, of all the documents that we've received in the short 8 months, it's been 8 months. This is one that I haven't the slightest idea, quite frankly, what I'm looking at, or what I'm supposed to do, or what value it is and what I'm doing and what my decision impacts and what it doesn't impact. I went back and looked at the numbers. I called Amy, and Amy gave me an understanding of somewhat of it, but I understand when I get down to the point that says initial maximum levy, and we're looking at a document that says 18,327,000. Then down and below it is a bunch of other stuff that I don't understand. First one is cumulative capital development adjustment. It's a plus. So what, I know what cum cap is, but what is an adjustment and what are we saying? Maybe it's a Mike Reuters, however you say his last name, understanding, but I couldn't find those numbers in his spreadsheet that he gave us. And I just, I never got this much document paper that I don't know what it is. And I'm looking to the 5 of you who've been here for a while to explain it to me, or anybody in the room, as to what it is. Other than we just have to approve it. Well, what are we approving and what are we asking people to do or not do? I just don't get it. So I don't know who wants to try to answer. I know you want to do it in 5 minutes, so good luck.
It's not an easy answer. We discuss this almost every year. These are the non-binding units that by statute, we have to approve their levies. And the verbiage that we typically use is not to exceed the state growth quotient. And it allows them to grow at whatever that number is. But as any oversight, their local boards have all of the, once we approve this and they get their money, their local boards have the
autonomy.
Yes.
And I get that part of it, but I don't get numbers below it. Cum cap adjustment, 2,500,000. What, 2,500,000 what? Where is that? Means that the cap the cum cap can be added 2,500,000. what, I don't get those other ones. Maybe do you?
Like the Q cut rate has to be reestablished like every year. It's separate. I think for tonight, by statute, you just have to, a written recommendation. These are great questions. We could have Mike Whiter further explain before the binding next month.
Because I matched all the numbers except when you got down to the plus estimated 2022 developmental disabilities adjustment, 2.5, and then his numbers, it was like 250,000. So I was just looking for numbers that didn't match, but I still didn't know what I was looking at. All right, so we were taking action, telling them, whoops, we better pay attention to this, or you're gonna have to come back and ask whom, us, for,
DGLF.
we're just telling them, stay within your limits, and that's it.
You have a statutory obligation to review them and then give a recommendation. So usually, that's what Jim was saying earlier, usually the recommendation is to stay within that growth quotient, right? So that's.
But it's sort of like the budget that we give department heads, they don't have to stay within it, but.
It's kind of like budget guidelines, but for
Like budget
other
guidelines.
tax.
Well, since we have to.
Well, I sure do like giving guidelines.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that the growth quotient matched what Mike had.
Yeah, and it was the same,
So Amy, the cover letter to that document, the calculation estimated maximum levy in number 2, footnote 2, it says 4.3%. Some of the notes you provided me stay 4.37. Which do I? 4.3. 4.30. Got it. Thank you. And if I recall, generally the president of council will read this into the minutes and then the motion would be made. Is that correct? Okay. All right. So as far as the council's review of the estimated property tax levy limits and estimated reductions due to circuit breakers for each taxing unit, Rob Anderson, I stated that the Johnson County Council as fiscal body has reviewed the estimated property tax levy limits and the estimated reductions due to circuit breakers for each of the following taxing units: Blue River Township, Clark Township, Franklin Township, Hensley Township, Needham Township, Nineveh Township, Pleasant Township, Union Township, White River Township. So Civil Town, Edinburgh Civil Town, Franklin Civil City, Greenwood Civil City, New Whiteland Civil Town, Princess Lakes Civil Town, Trafalgar Civil Town, Center Grove Community School Corporation, Clark Pleasant Community School Corporation, Edinburgh Community School Corporation, Franklin Community School Corporation, Greenwood Community School Corporation, Nineveh Jackson United School Corporation, Hagelin Public Library, Johnson County Public Library, Amity Fire District, Bartlesville Fire District, Hensley Fire District, Needham Fire District, Nineveh Fire District, White River Fire District, Solid Waste District, and Johnson County. I would entertain a motion for these units not to exceed their 2021 property tax levy multiplied by the 2022 statewide growth quotient of 4.3%.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion from Jonathan T. Myers, a second from Pete. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you, Ron, for those questions. And Amy, you will follow with Mike and we'll get some answers back to the group. Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes section E. Moving on to old and new business. Any old or new business?
Sheriff, you have anything? Usually you're up here every month.
Sheriff's given the okey dokey sign.
I'd like to confirm times for our budget hearings. The 7th is at 8:30. Is that correct? The 9th is at 8:30.
Correct.
The 16th is at 1 or is it at 8:30?
8:30 is the second reading. At 1 o'clock is your right.
So it's all day also. Okay.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Hearing no older new business before us, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion from Jim, second from Pete. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Enjoy your evening. Be safe.